The scenario of this is you've got some kind of a housing where fluid is flowing through it, and you need to make a new design, a new concept for something. The thing is, the new design you have, the fluid flowing through it needs to be similar, if not the same, to this one. Well, how would you transfer the insides of this to a brand new model and start chipping away at the outside of your model to get it look just right? Well, that's really not a way that someone would necessarily design, but Spaceclaim is really a game changer. Very much so. It really turns the whole paradigm of modeling upside down. So I mentioned that I want to get the volume of the inside of this to be, I want it to be the same as on my new model. Well, how would I extract out the volume? Now, this is something that we've seen as problematic with CAD tools at large, but in Spaceclaim we've got it down to just a couple of button clicks. There's no complicated Boolean operations. This volume extract tool does exactly what it says. It makes a solid body out of everything on the inside. Now this is something that I might want to optimize. Now there's a couple of small ports running through these three smaller diameters. The endpoints of those is really inconsequential. I don't really care where they are. So for that purpose, I'll just extend out the ends and make sure they extend, plenty far. But I care about the general location of them, if that makes sense. So I'm just pulling on them, getting them to extend out far. There's a little small face right there that may get in the way. Well, that's not a problem. I fill it in. I get rid of it. I'll pull on that last one. So part of what I might want to do for the simplifying and just tweaking the inside and optimizing it, there's a few diameters I might want to get rid of. So simple to do. I grab the faces of concern to me and I fill them in. Let's make sure I get that last one. When I click this fill tool, it's so great. It's just great to be able to modify this the way I do. That diameter extends over. And bear in mind, this is something I didn't create. I mean, this is just a solid generated over the course of a couple seconds in Spaceclaim that's the resultant of everything on the inside. It's this common volume right here that connects the two tubes. That's the one that I might want to optimize and sort of start over and make everything a little bit bigger. Well, it's great to be able to say, let's just grab that whole thing and fill it in and kind of start over on the common volume. So maybe I decide to pull on these a little bit and extend the diameters a bit, and I need to make a new, again, the goal here is the volume that's going to connect these two tubes. I want it to be a little bit bigger. Now, one of the ways I like to work on models, I haven't really shown this yet, is to go into what we call a cross-section mode. Great for visualization. It's great for seeing areas that would just be difficult, if not impossible, otherwise. And in a cross-section mode, we also let you create geometry. I'm just creating a primitive cylinder. That's all it is. It looks like a box right now, but if I rotate around and maybe go into a 3D mode, you can see that clearly is a cylinder. Alright, so what am I trying to do here? Well, I want to take that cylinder and make it a little bit bigger. So maybe I'll pull on the axis and turn this into something that's like a slot, or the reverse of a slot. I'll go in that direction about as far as I think it can go, zip around to the other side and pull on this axis as well, and make this one go about as far as it can go as well. And I'm going to just leave it right there. That's a solid body all by itself, sitting out there. What I want to do is merge it to the original body. So easy to do with that combine tool. And now I've got a brand new common volume that connects the two. If this isn't what you want, you can always run through a different iteration. And obviously this is going to have some rounds along the perimeter. Smooth things out. We'll call it 0.010 of an inch, something small. Try that bottom one again. So very easy to do. Alright, so I have, and again, there's a lot of more changes maybe you'd want to make for optimizing this, but let's just leave it at that. Let's just keep it simple and say, this is the brand new inside that I want my new model to have, because maybe you've tested out the flow of something, or you think this is generally the direction it needs to go in. Well, let's open up a new model, and I've already started this ahead of time. It's very, very primitive, but the green represents the new model, and it's very blocky in nature right now because all I did was take into account some keep out zones, which is everything in pink. So the pink is keep out zones. I've constructed just a primitive model around it. I can hide those for a moment. But what I want to do is take this volume that I just worked with and, same as before, throw it into this model and copy and paste it. Alright, so you can see the volume sitting inside of the solid. These are just two independent solids at this point. And how do I make sense of this now? Well, probably one thing to do to start would be turn this into a transparent model and start making modifications to it. You see, I've got counted 4 main ports. I'll select them all right now so you can see them. 4 main ports that need to have an opening, or the solid needs to have an opening available for all those. So that's where I need to start doing my modifications. Well, this is where the direct modeling tools in Spaceclaim just come in so handy. I'm able to snap faces up to those ports. Now, it's a little bit trickier over here. I've got to decide how I want that opening to look like. And again, this is concept modeling, and because of that, you can really, there's no right or wrong answer. You can start anywhere you want. I've just drawn a box somewhere and pulling that through and making a cutout. Now you might be wondering, well, why did he make a box and a cutout right there? Well, again, I go back to there's no right or wrong way. That's just a starting point to get me close to where I want. Now I pull on faces, get them in a close proximity. Let's snap this face up to that one port, and I'm going to say that looks good. But notice the port doesn't have, the opening doesn't have a clean opening on this face. Well, one thing I could do, and I've seen a lot of designs like this, is to have something that looks like a counterbore opening. That's not a problem to do. I just need to tell Spaceclaim to utilize some data around me, some geometry around me, and start pulling that through. Now I've got a clean opening for that one port. I just took some faces I didn't want, a feature, and filled it in. It's so easy. It's like working with Play-Doh. I was about to say clay or Play-Doh. I sliced off those faces right where I wanted them to go. You know, the same thing over here, this port as well. That may need to have a little bit bigger of an opening than it does. Easy to do. I tell the system, make a nice cut right through there. And there's a couple of green faces I don't want. Let's fill those in. And there's a nice opening for it. Same thing over here, the last one, the fourth one. Pull that face over. Obviously, a lot more things you'd want to do to optimize this, but hopefully you get the idea. If you want to put rounds on given faces, on given edges, sure, you can do that. That might be a step you do later on or earlier on, or whatever, but you're free to do it. You're free to model however you want. Now, let's bring this back to something that looks more opaque. The only problem I have is that I haven't cut anything away from the model. The volume was just sitting there in space. So that combine tool, I showed you how it merges things, but it also cuts bodies up. Let's use it to cut out from the solid the entire volume. So that could be your brand new model right there. The exact volume you need has been hogged away from the center.